Hello everyone and welcome to another video with me, 320 Sim Pilot. I am a real-world airline pilot. I currently fly the Boeing 777 aircraft, but in today's video I'm going to be showing you the TFDi MD-11 for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. This is a new update that allows it to be compatible with 2024. However, it also brings artwork and sound improvements that are free as an update to your 2020 version if that's what you have. So in today's video we're going to look at this new artwork and update, and then also try it out of course in the new simulator. To get this aircraft in 2024, I had to pay a $5 upgrade fee as I already had the 2020 version. So that is all you need to pay to get the 2024 version. And if you have the 2020 version and you're sticking with 2020, you can get the art and sound upgrades for free for that simulator. If you do upgrade to 2024, you now have things like click spots on the outside of the aircraft, an improved cabin, you've got overhead bins even that open, and it can work in the career mode if you buy this through the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 marketplace. So there we go. Like I say, it's $5 to upgrade this if you want to use it in 2024, free if you want to get this update in 2020. This aircraft came out a little while back, over a year ago, but it had a really nice interior model, I thought, but it had some lacking exterior models. So it's nice to see the artwork now be improved. And in this video, we're going to see how much it's improved and if it's now worth the money, because it's quite a hefty ticket price if you're buying this from scratch, especially as now it will be slightly increased because it will include both versions. But here we are on stand in Los Angeles. I'm going to take it for a full flight. We'll go from cold and dark. We'll look at the exterior model. We'll look at the new features in the cabin and take it for a flight. The MD-11 is a very famous aircraft for lots of reasons. It is an aircraft from McDonnell Douglas, obviously, hence MD-11. It first flew in 1990. It is an updated version, of course, of the DC-10, which had that tri-jet design. This sort of tri-jet design was classic before ETOPS came along, and it's one of the problems the MD-11 had was it launched a little bit too late, because by this point the Boeing 777 and the A330 were coming along. Those are pure ETOPS aircraft and only needed 2 engines to fly long distances away from airports, whereas aircraft like the MD-11 had 3 engines so that they were allowed to fly long distance away from airports, because previously you couldn't have just 2 engines. So it was a little bit late to the party there. They only built 200 in the end because in the meantime McDonnell Douglas got merged with Boeing, and Boeing then scrapped the program because of course they had the 777 coming along and the 767, yeah, there was no point running these to compete with each other. It has one of the highest wing loadings of any commercial aircraft ever, which gives it high approach speed, so it's a heavy aircraft for its wing size. Even though it does have a slightly higher wingspan than the DC-10, it just still runs with a high wing loading and therefore giving it high approach speeds. It also has a smaller tail plane. The horizontal stabilizer at the back is smaller than it was on the DC-10 to improve efficiency, but these combined to give it some nasty handling characteristics in strong winds, which unfortunately has led the MD-11 to have a bit of a reputation for difficult landing management and handling during landings, and there are obviously unfortunately quite a few examples of that happening around the world. Quite a high rate for an aircraft like this. You wouldn't expect to have quite so many incidents on an airframe that was made with just so few different airframes actually made. It does have some very modern systems in it though, and you'll see it's very comparable to an Airbus in lots of ways, including the fact that the way the FMS is laid out, or the MCDU, and the way it has a computerized rear horizontal stabilizer to try and improve its handling characteristics. And these are things that we see on modern aircraft quite regularly now. It comes with all variants if you do buy the full version now. So I've got freighters, GE, Pratt & Whitney, because you had 2 options of engine on this aircraft, both General Electric and Pratt & Whitney engines, and those are all available in this package. So first of all, let's take a walk around of the exterior model. Now this is a big area of improvement. The artwork has been improved massively. The previous version was okay, but it was lacking in some areas, and that has been corrected really nicely now, and this brings this aircraft up to scratch with some of the best add-ons in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. There are some areas that are still a little bit bland compared to some. If you look at this wing boxing and routing and so on, this is a little bit low detail, but it's not bad actually. It's not bad at all. You can see the different screws and the paint flaking off on some of them. But if we go around the front here, it's really quite impressive. You've got all the right decals, you've got the grime coming down from the windows, and then as we look on sort of things like hatches and doors, you can see the grime, like these are air outlets of some variety by the looks of it, and as you can see the sort of streaks behind, which is exactly what you get on real aircraft. You know, they're hard working machines, and things often build up in different areas. So yeah, really, really nice. You can see the ripples in the metal work around where the ribs and spars of the frame are. So that looks absolutely great. Like I say, a big step up over the previous version. It now looks like it belongs in Flight Simulator, and it certainly belongs in Flight Simulator 2024. Now, speaking of that, this is an art update that you can get for free from Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, but this 2024 edition, which is a $5 upgrade if you already have 2020, does allow you to have click spots on the outside. So, for example, if we want to add external air, I can click on that, and it plugs in high pressure air, puts the van in, which is pretty cool, pretty handy. I'm not a huge fan of this sort of walk around mode. I don't use it much, but look at this. You can open up all the doors. Love the doors on the MD-11 that fold up into the ceiling. Not many airplanes use that. The 767 had a similar system, but yeah, I'm not sure what else we can do on the outside. But like I say, details all round. We've got nice modelling. We've got really nice texturing as well. You've got, like I say, with ripples. Look at the angle of attack sensor, pitos, and the decals as well, which are very important. They really give an aircraft a sense of weight and reality, I think, having a little warnings and decals like you have on the real aircraft. And as we come to the nose here, you can see even more of that. Look at this nose gear. It looks excellent. No complaints from me. Again, I'm not sure it's the best nose gear I've ever seen, but certainly it's much better than it was, and the aircraft itself looks lovely. And like I say, definitely up to standard now for being in the simulator. The interior model was always very nice before. I liked that anyway, but it's exceptionally good now, but it was always excellent. As we come around the wing routes, this is a big heavy metal plane. Not quite as big as a 777, which is what I currently fly, but it is pretty chunky nonetheless. Engine looks nice. This old style, lots and lots of fan blades, and it does make that ticking noise sometimes when you have the right wind, which I really like, which is the fan blades sort of sitting in their roots. But anyway, round we come. Engine pylons, and look, you can see way more detail now than we used to have on this. It's lovely, yeah. Looks great to me. Drooping flight control surfaces because they're not pressurized with the hydraulics. And then we come out to the wingtips. So the wingspan of this aircraft is somewhere in the region of 52 meters. So yeah, quite a bit, about 10 meters shorter, even a bit more than the 777. But they have this cool split winglet, which is actually something we've seen Boeing do later on the 737, of course. But it was sort of pioneered here with the MD-11. First airplane really I've seen that had sort of both added on at the start. These weird flap fairings, which are not used very often. And then the main landing gear with an extra center gear, which I'm surprised at. Given the weight of this aircraft, I'm surprised it needed it. But there we go. That's what they went with. Good. It is a chunky machine. This fuselage cross-section and these extra body fairings here, I suppose with the extra landing gear, just make it seem so imposing and big. And then you stand here and you have a whole engine up there, tucked away, quite something. Now here's the MD-11 Classic features. You've got the slightly enlarged cone on the engine in the tail. This was used on later DC-10 variants, and it just improves efficiency and airflow into the engine. And then you have your stabilizer up here, which is much smaller than the DC-10. That's because they changed the weight balance in the C of G on the aircraft for the cruise, and it meant less drag by having a smaller stabilizer. But that did have negative impacts on the handling characteristics in windy conditions. But look at that. It looks amazing. Really nice detail all around at the back here. APU outlets back down here as well. Excellent. Love this cool chrome livery as well. Comes across really nicely in the simulator. There's some good effects on it. You can even see the seats inside the cabin there. Yeah, gorgeous. Look at that. Excellent. So let's jump into the cockpit and start getting it powered up. Now here we are on the cockpit, and lo and behold, this looks fantastic. It did before, and it looks even better now. The whole thing looks really great. Nicely worn. Excellent details all around. Lots of 3D modeling. Just look at this little TIM thing. I have actually seen this system in real aircraft. This is used for connecting your iPad and then having sort of different Bluetooth connections and so on. But yeah, it just looks great, doesn't it? What happens if I click it? Yeah, you can even click the charging cable, and this just goes all around. It's really, really one of the best, and it was at the time, and it still is now, one of the best modeled cockpits I think I've ever seen in a flight simulator. They just did a lot of work in here. This is the third pilot, or the flight engineer station, which of course is no longer needed in the MD-11 thanks to its glass cockpit, which is a very similar setup to what we have in the Boeing 717, which is not something we see very often. Those should probably be at idle. I'll put it with the controls in the right position for sitting here on the ground. That's just left over from where I've been flying it before. But yeah, really nice all round. Look at the yoke, look at the wear on it, the floor. This is sort of an anti-rust colour that you see quite a lot on airplanes, this yellowy green effect. And then you've just got grime and grub around all the switches and controls, just like you would. You get exactly this sort of darkening patterns around the controls. It's very, very, very lifelike. I like it a lot. And just look at all the 3D modeling. Everything's got a model for it, even the headphone jacks. Excellent. Yeah. Really, really great. It looks like quite a spacious cockpit to me, I suppose, because you've got that third pilot, and then you've got all this space back here. I say third pilot, flight engineer. I'm not sure whether they like being referred to as pilot or not. But there we go. So what we can do is jump into our seat, and we have the EFB over here, and this is where obviously we run a lot of our things, but we're going to load in our flight plan. This is a flight plan from here in Los Angeles up to Seattle. So I like this summary page. Gives you the weights, the flight level, the cost in X, and the fuel and so on. Really nice. And what we can do really easily is click set payload and fuel. So this is loaded in from SimBrief, by the way, but I'm going to click set payload and fuel, and then that goes straight into here, and that's now loaded correctly with the 0 fuel at 163.5 tons, which is what we expected. Excellent. So that has loaded the aircraft correctly, and now we're going to go into the power up process. I'm just going to set the parking brake. For some reason it does load in the wrong position. You can choose the state you want the panel, so we're in cold and dark, but look at that, you can save, do ready to fly, ready to start. You can also of course do ground services, so we have the GPU connected and the wheel chocks currently connected. No stairs though that I could figure out, which is a bit of a shame, but there we go. We've also got the charts where it will load in if you have Navigraph, and it will show you the charts for your flight, and if you click on dispatch you can literally click view departure charts and it will do it for your airport. And then you have options, which has a load of options, so the screen brightness, what units you want, can you have failures, then you've got different systems, how do you want the PFD to look, that sort of thing. Cores with the shouting out system, which I absolutely love, which gives you all the different callouts. Performance, so different D-rate options and so on. That's very in-depth. I'm very impressed if anyone wants to change any of those, but some people might. And put in your SimBrief. But there we go. Right. Or sync minimums, yes, absolutely. Good. So let's power on the airplane. Okay, so let's get the aircraft powered on. And like there was when I originally made my video with this, there is an excellent quick start guide on TFDi's website. I should use their full name, TFDi Design. But there we go. So what we can do is we simply need to go to the overhead panel. And I love the sound effects on this aircraft. But look at the cockpit. It just looks fantastic. Really, really happy with this. And what we're going to do is turn on the battery. Classic. It should generate a few warnings and cautions as it slowly powers on. I'm going to turn on the external power, which is here. Click. And there come the warnings. Then I'm going to put the emergency power to arm. And I'm going to align the IRSs by clicking on these. 1, 2, 3. Automatically test the cargo fire hold. Off it goes. Lots of things are automatic in this airplane. It's very strange. It's got lots of unique features that make it quite something. So there we go. And that is now the aircraft getting slowly warmed up. I'm going to arm the emergency lights. And as we've already fueled, we'll put the no smoking and seatbelt signs on ourselves now. Great. Let's put the nav lights on the outside. Logo lights can stay off because it's broad daylight over there. And I think we're in a pretty good place. Moving down into the center pedestal. And this is a really interesting aircraft because you'll see that it's actually perfectly possible to get this up and running much quicker than you would imagine. Stabilize that. That's our standby instruments. You can change, I think, that if you have those digital or analog. And there we go. The airplane is now powered up, warming up, and we are getting ready. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, we've loaded the weights over in our EFB. So let's bring up the route, which is here, and let's set up the FMC. Now, this is a very similar thing to the A320. I must say that's the most similar. Even though it's a Boeing, it's quite strange to me how similar this is to the Airbus. So there's our initialization and our database, a little out of date as ever on my channel. But what we can do is then go to, wrong button, flight plan init. Now you can, of course, just click send flight plan to FMC, or you can type it in yourself. So I'm just going to click send it to the FMC because that's the easiest. And you can see it puts in from KLAX to KSEA, which is our route, but it doesn't put in much else. So I need to put in the rest of the information, which is going to be Manta 222 today, which goes in on the flight number. Our alternate airport, which is shown up here, is going to be Portland, Kilo Papa Delta X-ray, Kilo Papa Delta X-ray, very standard FMS, so that can go into the alternates. And cruise levels down there, so we're going to cruise at 34,000 feet, cost X 199. So if I put 340, cost X in the bottom right there, 199. Temperature and winds, which we'll load in, and we need to initialize the IRS because they are aligning. Pos ref just to check. Seems good. It's already navigating very well. I've got it set to align slightly quicker than normal. So return to flight plan init. This is a very nice FMS. Then through to page 2, and in here we can put in the weights. So before we do that, I might put in the flight plan just to make sure it's all correct. So flight plan, we're taking off from Los Angeles, and then we have our onwards route. So we're going to take off, and I'm going to expect to take off from runway 2. Let me get this right today. 25 right. So we just scroll down, runway 25 right. And just in case you missed that, I was on flight plan, and just like the Airbus, I select next to the airport, SIDS, and then you can select everything. So 25 right. We're doing a Lady J4 departure via CSTRO, and then bottom left insert. No use of color. It is an old CRT green screen, which I secretly quite like, even though it's a shame because the color used in the Airbus is very good. So there we go, from 25 right, and there's our initial route, and then of course you could scroll through all the way through, and you could put in the arrival into Seattle. So you can select star and put that in, but we're not going to do that right now. I'm going to go back to my init page 2, and I've got 200 kilos taxi, which is very light. That is an Airbus sort of taxi fuel. I'm quite surprised. Yeah, it should be 900 kilos. I was going to say, an aircraft of this size, that's about what I'd expect. 0.9 tons of that, and then we can put in our zero fuel weight. And, oh no, it doesn't work. I do need to type it in, I think. Let's see, or what if I just put in the gross weight? There you go. If I click on the gross weight, it does register correctly what the weight of the aircraft is, which is quite handy because our gross weight here, 186.5. Yep, so that has worked, which is good. Block fuel, which is shown up here, we need 23.9 tons. I mean, that's almost nothing for an aircraft of this size, but there it is, 23.9. And then you can just click next to these and it will pop in the correct CGs. And that does change according to what you're doing. So there we go. We have an extra 42 minutes, lots of fuel. I've loaded the airplane to be relatively heavy, but still we're only taking off 186. This airplane can take off up to 250 tons. I mean, you would easily expect this. Sorry, even more than that, actually. The maximum weight of this airplane is 285 tons in certain variants. So yeah, it can be a lot heavier than it is today. Almost 100 tons more weight. But that's fine. It's this airplane would be used on shorter sort of shuttle routes as well. Okay, there we go. And then if I go to page 3, that is the fuel in it, so I'm not going to look at that. So done our data, our init A. This is very much like an Airbus. We've done our flight plan, secondary flight plan. I'm not going to touch. I suppose I could just copy the active. There we go. Then the rad nav. Is there a rad nav page on here? Yep, nav rad. Automatically tuning, which is great. And finally, I'll go to performance. But it's not performance on this airplane. It's takeoff approach. It has its own button. There we go. Good. So let's load up the performance. So click on the perf tab over on the EFB. And very straightforwards. KLAX. 25 right. And then we can put in the wind, which today is very benign. Put in the temperature. Oh, which is 15 degrees Celsius. And the pressure to 9. Or even easier, you can actually just click get weather information, get takeoff weight, loads it in. I'm going to use flex, so derated takeoff, anti-ice no, optimum flap, and then I am having the air conditioning packs on. And then I just hit calculate, and it loads them in. So here we go, flex of 59, flaps of 10 degrees because we're so light today. So flex 59 up there, packs are going to be on, flaps 10 degrees. So packs is talking about air conditioning packs. Are we going to keep those running for takeoff? Which we are. Lots of aircraft will turn them off for takeoff, but we don't. Flaps 10, and then we put in our speeds, 135, 142, 162, 135, 142, 162. So even at these weights, a very high V2, 162. We don't need to put in the slope wind because we are using calculated speeds already. Our minimum clean speed is 230 knots, so we can accelerate to that, or we can go straight to 250 knots. But it's potential to, if you overweighted or took off very heavy, then that could be higher than 250 knots. And outside air temperature, 15 degrees C. You do need to tell it the units. There we go. Climb thrust are in there. Great. So that is that setup. So let's now go to our charts. And we're taking off. I can just show you where we are, just so give you an idea of what we're about to taxi out and do, because I know some people like to fly along when I do these full videos. So we are going to be, we're parked down here in this little cul-de-sac, and what we're going to do is push back and then taxi out and then down along here, long way down to runway 25 right, and then take off in that direction. I don't know if there's a way to pin this chart. I think not. But that's the taxi routing, so that'll be pretty obvious as we do it. And then SID, we're going with the Lady for departure, which is here from 25 right, take off, and then we make a right turn up, Lady J, and on we go. Stopping at 8,000 feet at Lady J, but there is actually there's even a 3,000 feet or below at this first waypoint here. Now the VNAV profile should account for that, so I'm just going to test that theory by putting 8,000 in the window as our stop altitude. I'm going to put 250 knots in the IS window because that is the speed we're going to eventually clean up to, because 230 knots is slower than that. If it was, like I say, if this minimum clean speed was 255, then I'd put 255 in there. Heading, we're taking off from runway 25, so I'm going to do that. This is a really interesting heading bug system, so there's lots to talk about once we get in the air with that. So let's put, what's the initial track? 252, there we go. And there we go. So we have the QNH set. I'll just get rid of that master caution. It's upset because there have a few different things, like the doors are open. But there we go. I've got a stop altitude 8,000. I'm just testing because that altitude, I would potentially put 3,000 feet in the window, but it does depend on your airline's procedures. But the vertical VNAV profile should already stop at the correct altitude and then climb up as we go. So I'll be curious to try that out. And then we can check that, because if I go to flight plan, just like on the Airbus, I can see below 3,000, below 5,000, above 7,000, and then 8,000. So there we go. It does seem to know that's in there. Great stuff, great stuff. So now what we're going to do is move on to getting the rest of the airplane set up. So to do that, we're going to need to start up the APU on the overhead panel. So what we're going to do is come over here, and it's really easy. You can just press APU power and it automatically starts. And if we look down on the systems page, I think if I go to stat, does it have its own page? It's not status. There you go. That shows all the messages and things that are off. Config, where's the APU shown? Config shows us the the temperature and pressures of the gear and the stabilizer position. Very nose forward at the moment. Let's try. I can keep pressing things. Engine. There we go. APU's on the engine page. You can see it there starting up, which is really cool. And on the outside, you can see that heat exhaust from it. Okay, now interestingly, we had a bit of a bug there where the two of the engines were running. This is down to, I believe, my TCA hardware, where it will start the engines. So just watch out for that. My two engine masters were on my TCA because I didn't have them assigned in this aircraft, I thought. And you might have spotted that it had two oil pressures showing here, but it didn't have any N1s because I hadn't started the engines properly. We started cold and dark. So very strange, but anyway, they're all off now, and we'll carry on starting up the aircraft correctly. It makes no difference to what we've done so far, but yeah, just something to watch out for. So like I say, we're on the APU power. That is now on. We'll get rid of the external power. We can turn on the galley power, which can be run off the APU. And I'm going to turn on the APU air conditioning, and that provides air to the packs. So we now got a bit of air conditioning in the cabin. And you can also set the passenger load if you want to. So there we go. So let me just check that there is nothing else I want us to do before we get underway. So we've set the QNH, we've set our clean speed in the V2 window, and we've got the heading for the runway. We're on APU power now, and we've got rid of the external power. Actually, what I would do, in fact, that's galley external power, so no, we'll turn that off as well. We don't want any external power connected. And then I'm going to go to services and disconnect the GPU, remove the chocks, close the last door. There we go. So just on the APU now. What I'm also going to do is come down here to the dialer flap system, and I can just wind this dial to 10 degrees. So you can actually put in it does very specific degrees. 10's about the limit, but anywhere in this range you can have it exact. So if we were really heavy, it might ask for something like 12 degrees of flaps. So we set it to 10, and then we can move the flap lever to this position in this sort of free range, as it were. Thrust levers are at idle, so that's all good. Excellent. Passenger signs are on, ready to go. APU bleed is on. I'm going to ask for ignition system A, and when we do that, it automatically removes air from the packs and gets ready to pressurize the airplane for engine start. So that is all ready to go now. I'm then going to put on the beacon lights because that is going to tell everyone around us that we're almost ready to go, and we're going to pressurize the aircraft with the aux pump 1. Normally you would tell the ground crew it would clear to pressurize, because that's what we were doing there, and you'll see that that actually provides some system pressure to the hydraulics on the aircraft, which is just makes it safe for pushback. So you'll see that it's actually quite straightforward to get this aircraft up and running, even from cold and dark, despite our little glitch there with the engines already being running. There we go. I'm also going to put the transponder to TARA, And then we are ready for pushback. So I think it's time we get going. So here we go, tug connecting. We're going to push back, and when we do push back, we'll start one engine at a time. I don't believe this had a powerful enough APU to start two at a time. So we'll do 1, 2, 3. It's a pretty automated start, but we do wait until the engines are spinning a little bit before we introduce fuel. So sort of a halfway between modern engine starts and the old school way. There we go, tug is connected. Let's release the parking brake. And off we go. What a machine. What a beast. And remember, this thing can fly a long way. It's got big wings, big fuel tanks, and like I say, a very heavy takeoff weight, so 280 odd tons. But as you can see, with 3 engines, it just fell out of favour to more modern twin jet aircraft. Just a little bit too late. There is some talk of why was it not a fully redesigned aircraft, but yeah, you know, maybe that would have worked a bit better. But this is what they got, and like I say, only 200 built, so quite a unique machine. Right into the cockpit then, and we'll get those engines up and running. So first of all, what we need to do, dead easy to get the engine started. We'll start engine 1. Oh, put that back. By putting the start switch. Wait for the N2 to reach 15%. No idea where this pushback's going to go. Look at all these old school liveries. Love that. Once we get 15% on the N2. Oh, it's a good pushback. 15, and then we can introduce fuel. And hopefully we'll hear some of those new sounds. I'll just turn them up. I think you'll agree, a lot nicer than the old sounds. Really nice sound effects there. We'll start with the center engine. I love that. I love having center engine. You'll see here we have fuel off, showing that we have not actually turned on the fuel switch yet, which makes sense. And over here I have the secondary engine display showing oil pressure. 15%. Fuel on. There we go. And then obviously we'll just repeat this process for all 3 engines. But look at this, you can see the EGTs, you can see the oil pressure, temperature rising, and the quantity will reduce now as it gets drawn through the engine. Nice detailing. Love that look. That third engine's just great. Oh, there you go. Look at this old livery over there. V2500IE testbed for the Airbus A220 engine. That's cool. I assume they use the engine on the MD-80 as well. Or 90, sorry. And then start the last engine. Okay, now it's time for the after start flow. Now this is pretty straightforward on this airplane. It makes a lot of sense. So what I'm going to do is turn off the APU air because we don't need that anymore. I'm going to set the flaps to the data flap settings. There you go. So that should now run them to 10 degrees. I think if I go to the config page, where are the flaps shown on this airplane? There you go, flaps 10 shown down there. But where's the actual position shown? Very strange. It's such a unique airplane. I think maybe config might show me. There you go, 10, 10, 10, 10. And then what we're going to do is set the spoilers by arming them. I've not had much luck with that, getting that to work, but there we go, I will try. I think that has just travelled them out. Yeah, that's no good. So let me put those forward and click those to arm. And what we're going to do is set the auto brake to RTO. Auto brake is down on this panel here, hidden away. But there we go, we can set that to takeoff. So they're ready to go in case we need to reject the takeoff. And then I'm going to go to takeoff perf page, which shows that the stab needs to be at 5.0. Stab is shown up here. In fact, if I get rid of that config page, we just go to the normal page, or even on the engine page, it appears on quite a few pages. We can run the trimmer to 5.0, which, as you can see, will be in the green bands. 3.3, keep going. You can see the APU on the right of that screen now shutting down as it's done its cooldown period. So that's very good indeed. So now we have no lights on the overhead panel, which is nice. You can see, by the way, the let's put the no smoking back on. This airplane was around when smoking might have been acceptable. You can see the fuel quantity in our 3 main tanks, nothing in the aux or tail tank. So this aircraft would put fuel in the tail tank to move the CG further aft. One of the reasons it could have a smaller stabilizer, and that made it obviously a bit more efficient. And aft CG is quite efficient. You'll see though when we're on approach that this, as a result, it has to be quite high up to get the airplane in the right position for landing. But there we go. Okay. What we're going to do now is arm our automatics for takeoff. So I want to have nav, which puts nav armed on the PFD. So the lateral mode is ready to go, which will let it follow the magenta string. And I'm going to arm prof. So profile armed, which is the vertical mode. So that's like LNAV and VNAV. They just have different names on this aircraft. Here's our screen showing us the routing. I can decrease the range down a bit. Shows us the terrain and then the different waypoints. If I press data, just like on the Boeing 777, it shows me the altitude restrictions at those waypoints, which is pretty handy as well. And then you can do a whole host of other things, like whether you want it to display airports nearby or other traffic, aircraft around, which you would always have on really, traffic, and then you can put on waypoints as well, you know, make it really busy. But that's far too much. Okay, let's get the airplane moving now for takeoff. So we're going to taxi out to the runway. I'm going to put on a taxi lights. So these are currently off. So I think we can set them all to the taxi position, which is sort of like a middle position. Look at that, you can see the outflow valve wide open there. That will be for the cabin pressurization. And we've got some taxi lights on the nose gear there. Excellent. So let's go. Brake released. It will need a bit of oomph. And like I said earlier, we're going to taxi out. If I show you the ground chart. We're taxiing out. We're just here and we're getting down and along for a 2-5 right. So let's take this first left. Now this is one of the best handling airplanes on the ground I've ever used in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's remarkably heavy, and if you get it up to 30 knots, it takes a lot of work to get it slowed down again, which it would do. You know, once you get these long haul jets up to 30 knots, they are going pretty fast. So yeah, it's very, very impressive ground handling, and I like the way it steers as well. By the way, I'm using chase plane, of course, to film this video. Just makes all the difference getting shots like this. Absolutely love it. There we go. This is a very light airplane today. That's the only difference. So it is not running at obviously at maximum weight because we've got such little fuel on board, really. Again, you can see the difference in that artwork. It really brings this airplane to life on the exterior model more. Look at the ripples in the skin. It well deserves its place in Flight Space 2024 now. Love this livery. It's so cool. Love the smiley face on the front. Now I imagine you'd have checked the flight controls before taxiing out, this being a sort of a Boeing, but if I go to config, I can actually see the flight controls, and as I move the stick you'll see them there, and it goes green when it gets to full extent. Really cool graphic that. So it's showing you elevators at the back there, just even a bit more for you. There's the elevators, and there's the ailerons and the roll spoilers on top of the wing, and then you got the 2 rudder panels at the top. It has 2. And this was quite common on aircraft of this age, where you would actually break up the flight controls. So if one had trouble, then another one could sort of take its place. So you can see that there's actually 2 separate panels. Quite a powerful rudder, but the advantage this aircraft has is if it loses one engine on takeoff, then the rest of the thrust is still in line. So let's say this center engine failed on takeoff, then you've got balance power from those two. If just say the right engine failed, then you've got the left and center, so that the thrust vector isn't too severe in terms of asymmetric thrust. Now, unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, this aircraft has been involved in a fair few number of incidents, and it's not really possible to show it in today's video without mentioning and talking about the UPS flight 2976. Now, of course, the investigation is still ongoing, but we have seen from various footage of the horror, really, of an engine separating on that aircraft, and then it's looking like it took out the center engine as well. But again, investigation is still ongoing, but yeah, a horrible situation that I hope that the industry can learn from and make sure that doesn't happen again, because it's absolutely terrifying. And no aircraft is designed to take off with losing 2/3 of its available thrust. But that's a very, very sad incident indeed, and that aircraft caused a lot of damage as well, because it was so full of fuel, because it had a long flight ahead of it, and this is a big aeroplane. So yeah, hopefully they can find the cause of that and make sure that does not happen again. Okay, we're approaching the runway now. We're going to take the right turn here and enter. So I'm going to put the lights to the takeoff position, and then I will put on the strobe lights on the outside. Slow it down, slow it down. You see here, this is not the quickest airplane to decelerate. Does need a bit of oversteering, but I think that might not be enough. Oh no, that's okay. That nose gear is quite far back on this airplane, certainly further back than I'm used to on the 777. So you can actually need to go a little bit deeper into the turns, or you have that option at least. What I'm also going to do as we line up, let me just make sure I get this right, is we are going to arm the autoflight system by pressing autoflight once. So I'll just do this once. Let's get this right. Autoflight, there we go. Now I don't know for sure if I've got that right, but I think that's the idea. And now what will happen is the auto throttle system will just take over for us. It's quite impressive, really, what you can do with the automation on this airplane. So it's clear on the approach, so let's line up and get it ready to go. So here we go, it's time to take off. So brakes released, the airplane is rolling. What I'm going to do now is stabilize the engines, bit of forward thrust. I'm not convinced I've got the spoilers to arm correctly, but there we go. I think this is going to work. Engine stabilized, and then we're going to push them forward above 70%. The auto throttle system should engage and drive them to take off thrust. So let's just push them forwards. There we go, and now they go. Now, yeah, the spoilers are not correct, but I will work that one out later. So there we go. Thrust is now driving to the setting automatically. How good's that? It just happens on its own. And then on the PFD, we'll see the V1 and rotate bugs coming up, which will reach in no time, even at this highly derated takeoff. V1, rotate, and now we'll get into the air. And we'll be able to pitch pretty high up. It does actually say 18 to 21 degrees. It's got very strong takeoff performance, this airplane. So it will just go up like a rocket. There we go, we're at 20 degrees, doing 176 knots. Really quite something. Anyway, positive rate, gear up, and we'll go up even faster. If we actually raise the gear, but you can see it's just so overpowered in this configuration with its having its 3 engines and not being too heavy. Storming away. There we go, we're above acceleration altitude. Whoops. There we go. So let's lower the nose. And notice how the FR goes green. That's a flat protract speed. So I'll lower the nose now. It's actually already hit the stop altitude of the initial stop altitude of 3,000 feet. Look at that. So I can actually already engage the autopilot. All I have to do to do that is remember where it is. Autopilot is going to be by pressing autoflight. There we go, autopilot 1. So we're level at 3,000 and it's at 172 knots, and it will now adjust the thrust accordingly to accelerate. Once we're 10 knots above FR, I can bring in the flaps. But look at that, it's just jumping up to the 5,000 feet step. So it is obeying these restrictions nicely, but it has been quite aggressive in the process. Look at that. And that's dropped off the autopilot for being a little too aggressive. So let's level it off at 5,000 feet there. Autopilot engage. Right, above 10, so we can bring it to the slats position. And once we're 10 knots above the slat retract speed, SR, bring the slats up as well. So now we're accelerating to a clean 250 knot machine, which is great at 5,000 feet. And once it gets there, it will continue the climb because we've passed the 5,000 feet or below restriction. I'll increase the range. So the VNAV's working nicely, if a little aggressive. I'm not sure whether I did the profile correctly there, because that was very, very aggressive adjustments. But there we go, we are away. Beautiful, what a machine. It looks so fantastic. And there you go, you can see it capturing that next stop. So as you can see, the system works, the LNAV, VNAV, and we are up and running. Love this interior cabin, by the way. If we have a quick look around, you can see it's really, really retro. You can open up the overhead lockers if you want. This is a 2024 exclusive feature. But yeah, again, I don't know particularly why you'd want to do that too much. But you can go and get all these nice window views. Look at that, absolutely brilliant. Gorgeous. And even, you can even wander into, oh, look at that, you can, I've not seen that before. Occupy the bathroom. Oh, head in. Doesn't flush though. Not sure what I'm clicking there. You have to be a little careful. Don't know what you're actually doing. Oh my goodness. You can do the tray tables. Yes, it's a very, very detailed cabin indeed. Can we do the sunshades? Wow. That's a lot of loading to be done. Okay, anyway, we are flying this airplane. We must remember that as well. So now we're at 8,000 feet for this restriction. Above 7, below 8, and then it will climb up to 10. It's actually wants to go to 34,000 feet, which is our cruising altitude. So if I wind that in, it would get there in absolutely no time today. But I would always put the altitude I want to stop at in there. But there we go. It's now just flying that SID, 250 knots, 8,000 feet. Very nice indeed. So we're now going to disarm those spoilers, which clearly I had not armed correctly anyway. And what else we need to do is on the overhead panel, I'll get rid of the landing lights, because actually what you might not have noticed is they stick out on the nose. So they would be quite rough and rumbling. They'd make noise on the flight deck. They're producing drag. So we don't really need them up here. So I'm going to bring those in. There we go. And it says that we should set the dial flap to 15. I assume in preparation for arrival. So let's scroll it to 15. My understanding is this system was not used by most airlines. They would just standardize an actual flap setting, because there's just too much risk in setting the wrong flaps if you're doing it by degrees. Look at this. It's super aggressive at these step climbs. So now it's going up to the next restriction, and it's just going to rocket away. But I suppose that's a feature of being so light, and it's tuned for being heavier. I don't know. So because the rear aircraft would also put fuel in the rear of the aircraft, in the tail. If we look at the fuel system, we would see that. So there you go. Those are our three main tanks, and then there'll be tail fuel, and that would mean that the trim would be further back, and it makes it more efficient. Aft CG refers to the center of gravity of the aircraft. This is the key thing about the MD-11 over the DC-10. The center of gravity of the airplane is where the weight acts through. Where is it balanced? Where would you have to, let's say this was a model airplane and you wanted to balance on your finger, where would you have to put your finger for it to balance? So an aft CG near the back of the airplane is more efficient. The reason is your wings can all be producing lift. If your CG is forward, let's say it was up here, and this is purely illustrative, I don't know in physical terms where it would actually be. Let's say it was up here, then the nose of the airplane, the tail, would have to be producing a downward force to raise the nose to keep that weight up. Whereas if you put the CG back here, again, very illustrative only, then all of this can produce lift, and you're sort of balancing it, so you're getting lift off the tail and the wings, so it's more efficient. So that's why they would try and put the weight aft. And even on the 777, having an aft CG improves your takeoff performance. So you can use slightly better takeoff performance figures if the CG is a certain distance back, because it's just easier for the airplane to fly. The risk is an aft CG is less stable. The airplane is more stable with a nose heavy CG, so if it goes too far aft, you would actually lose control of the airplane. So it's a feature of having fuel in that tail tank that is one of the reasons that airliners don't do it really anymore. They're designed with the CG in the right place. They don't tend to put fuel moving around because it's just another thing that can break. Fuel systems are tried to keep as simple as possible so that any leaks happen don't cause too many problems. Anyway, there we go. We are absolutely storming up now. What's the climb rate? I mean, yeah, 3,300 feet per minute, 308 knots. Fantastic. Now, we're in nav 1 and climb thrust and then pitch, and it's chosen the FMS speed. We can, of course, select our own speed, just like on the Airbus. I can pull that, and then I can wind it to, say, 280 knots. And now the airplane should pitch up. No, it's not going to do it. Why not? There we go. I have to pull it now. So I've pulled it once to set it. Now I've set it. Now it's going to pitch up to try and do 280 knots. And then if I want to, I can just... So now it's just going to climb at the speed I've set. Let's say air traffic says reduce speed 280, or they want us to increase our rate of climb. I love this VSI, this sort of arrow. It's quite cool. And then I can just hit FMS speed, and it will go back to where it wanted to be, 310. Similar thing with the heading. It's in auto at the moment. I'm not going to keep adjusting it, because if I just push it, it's just going to synchronize, which I really like. But you can just leave it in the auto position, and it will do automatic bank angle. And actually, it's quite hard to see what bank angle it has set to. There we go. Yeah, set the bank angle to auto. And if I pull it, I think it's going to go into heading mode. There we go, heading 337. Again, just like the Airbus. This airplane is remarkably easy for an Airbus pilot to fly. So if I pull it, heading 315. There we go. So whatever heading I set, there we go, now it's going to fly to that heading. You've got the trend vector there showing you where the aircraft will be at certain times in the future, and there's our lateral route. By the way, look at the artwork in the cockpit just as we come around. Just seeing the dust and fingerprints and so on, and grease and smudges on these screens. It's great. It's such a great cockpit. Really, really one of the best in any simulator. I absolutely love it. And we can bring the sun visors round. This system has not been improved much, even in the 777 and the 787, sadly. But there we go. Beautiful scenery. I think these windows are huge. I think pilots must have a great view out the side of the MD-11, because these are noticeably big, and these frames are lovely and small. And there you go. You need to have the full sunshade. Very neat. And I like the way the EFP disappears automatically. I don't like the way it's gone now. I want it back. There we go. Excellent. So we're now flying up on our SID. But, of course, I'm not going to make you sit here while I fly all the way to Seattle. We're going to set the airplane up for an arrival. Let's imagine we want to return back into Los Angeles. Oh, look, you've got the elapsed time and the current time. So current time and elapsed time automatic. This is a really advanced airplane in lots of ways. The way it automatically has the auto throttle system armed, and then it just engages at takeoff and so on. Very, very neat. I like it a lot. But what I want to do is, let's imagine we've been asked, oh no, you need to go back to Los Angeles, please. So I can select a waypoint, new destination, just like on the Airbus. Let's go back to Los Angeles. Insufficient fuel, because it can't get us all the way up there and back. But I'm going to go to Los Angeles, select a star. We're going to land this time on ILS 24 right. Let's land on the north side of the airfield via Angel 4, and we'll come in via Circus. And then I just insert that, and now on our nav display we'll be able to see it. Yep, there's the arrival all over there. And what I can do, I'm actually going to skip a lot of that arrival. Let's say, well, let's go to Cannes. So if I go direct, then we can just scroll through again, very much like the Airbus. Cannes, and direct to. Now, of course, it's not going to do it, because what it hasn't done, unfortunately, which the Airbus would do, is it has not automatically engaged LNAV. So now I need to press nav over here, and it will turn. And unfortunately, it does this horrible thing, which is where it doesn't predict the turn. It just does it aggressively. So actually, let's go to Boyle. Let's do another one for it. See if it can manage that. And let's stop our climb now at 26,000. It's really struggling. Interesting. It's struggling to come up with a way around this turn. So I'm going to turn and point towards where we want to go to help it out. Because we're going very fast and quite high. In the meantime, I'm going to just bring up the charts for the arrival. So what we're doing is the Angel 4. And I'm actually going to send it to... Oh, there, we're already going to Cannes at 17,000. So in fact, let's just go to the approach. ILS 24 right. If I can find it. Lots of runways in Los Angeles. There we go. So in fact, we could just go straight to Circus. So let's do that once we're around the corner. But yeah, powerful, fast airplane. Can cruise at 8.3, which is similar to the 777. So it's a bit faster than those A330s that eventually came along to replace it. What a beauty, though. So we're heading over for the arrival. It won't surprise you to hear that if you click on Perf tab now, it automatically comes up with landing performance. So now I'll just select the runway again. 24 right this time. Dry, get the weather, get the weights. We're going to land flap 35 this time, I think. Auto brake, let's go for medium. Reverses. Look at that wing tail, none, I love that. And then calculate. And look at that, loads of room, easy peasy. So let's set the auto brake accordingly. Let's set to medium. And let's set up the box for arrival. So what I need to do is go to Perf. No, sorry, takeoff approach. There we go. We're landing flap 35, so 35 land. Just like on the Airbus, you would select 50 land if you wanted to land full flap, which is a little slower approach speed. It's worth noting that this is one of the things of this aircraft, that even at this very light weight, we're landing at 153 knots. Very fast, and this is one of the things to do with that high wing loading. It shows you the clean minimum speed over there, which would also appear on our speed tape. Very, very nice avionics on this aircraft. I find them very intuitive and simple to use. Right, so now I'm going to put Circus as a direct to. Nav. Now, Circus, I want to be above 12,000 feet. But, remember, we have the VNAV profile. So, if I put 10,000 feet in the window, it should still descend via that profile. So if I click profile, or this is going to be on my knowledge of this aircraft's vertical navigation, we might need to be a bit closer to start our descent. What else do we have on these systems pages? Consequences, I love that. What a great name. This, I imagine, is like the status page on the A320 or the ICAS notes, the ECL, sorry, the emergency checklist, sorry, the electronic checklist notes on the Boeing that would show you all of the different consequences of the failures you've had. Air systems, there you go, showing you there different temperatures and inlets, and in the cabin and in the holds. Three temperatures in the hold, which is quite a lot. But I think I'll leave it on engines for now. Okay, there we go, there's the top of the descent arrow up there, so hopefully this will all work out nicely. I don't know why it says hold 26. Oh yes, it's holding us to 26. It says 34 in the VNAV profile, so we shall see what this does as we get closer. So here we go, approaching top of descent, and I'm expecting it to just automatically start down. Now, it wants to go to 34,000 feet, so I'm not entirely sure. I think these magenta things, by the way, are the tuned nav aids. Yeah, Lima Hotel Sierra, Papa Mike Delta. So these are the things that this radio nav is tuned, and you can display VORs and so on by clicking on the different buttons. Oh, sorry, you can swap them over by clicking here. Captain will show you the number 2, clever things like that. There we go. Vertical alert, hold, profile is now engaged. 12,000 feet is the next restriction, which I knew, but I put 10,000 in the window, so it should obey that restriction anyway, much like the Airbus. And now it's actually going to accelerate up to its planned descent speed and then fly down. So we really don't need to do a whole lot. It will automatically fly all the way down. And if I was to go back to my chart and just put in the platform altitude of the ILS, which is 2,200 feet, as long as all those restrictions are in there, which they are, it should do it. Now, whether that's what you'd want to do or not, I don't know. It's not always wise to put the lower altitudes in because you should be monitoring it anyway, so you really should be watching it closely. However, there is another thing to say, which is it's a lot of work to keep updating every altitude to the correct one, especially when you have lots of them. Look at this, 3 miles, 4 miles, 3 miles. And remember, air traffic are talking to you, the cabin might be talking to you, you're trying to configure the airplane. So there is an advantage to knowing the VNAV system will work. And like I say, if I go to flight plan, I can actually see that it will work because it's all in there, as long as we're in the correct mode. Profile mode is correct. So I'm going to be pretty confident. I'm just going to leave it alone to descend like this. We've set up the performance, so I think we're in a good place, really. And there we go, it's come true, it's now joined the profile and it's descending according to its calculated descent profile for this arrival. Great. It will warn us if it wants us to help it out with drag. So if I go direct, let's say traffic now clears us in to go to, I don't know, let's pick a point, Livin. So we're suddenly cleared direct there. We're now going to be high on profile, of course, and you can see here that magenta diamond's gone to the bottom. Classic Boeing visualization, that showing us that we're now high on the profile. So it should, once it works it out, I would imagine ask us to add some speed brake. Is there a progress page? There is a progress page. Not sure it's going to show us how far off profile we are, but there we go. We might actually think we can do it. Decrease the range. I've never seen buttons for the range increase decrease, but there we go. This one does prove that it's always possible to think of something different. And we see it's gone idle. It's in pitch mode for 330 knots. So some more good news is that it automatically tunes the ILS. If I go to NavRad, you can see that the India Oscar Sierra Sierra ILS, which is this one here, India Oscar Sierra Sierra, has automatically been tuned and now has also automatically appeared on the PFD. It's really great. We don't have to do a whole lot of work here. It's such a great combo of Airbus and Boeing. I absolutely love it. Right, this time it is at least making the turn correct. Because I'm not a fan of the way it was doing those direct twos. But there we go. We're 13,000 feet out, and the glide slope is significantly beneath us. So I think we are way off profile. So if I have a look, we're 22 miles out. We need about 30 miles. So what has happened here is we've just become incredibly high because I've become so far off the profile. It's not even recognizing it. So let's see if we can use those speed brakes. They have 3 settings only. Weirdly, it just jumps between them. They're notched. It's not like, it's a bit like flaps. You can select an amount, and then you'll see them on the outside. There you go. And that's all you get. But yeah, there's absolutely no way we're making it in off this approach because the airport is just in front of us there. And we are 10,000 feet, 20 miles away. So we're 10 miles too high. So let's do a little correction here. So I'm going to leave it at 245 knots. I'm going to slowly put the speed brakes away for now because we're going to do a big orbit here. We'll orbit to the south away from the terrain to the north as we keep the descent going, and a turn like this will do wonders to get the energy out of the airplane. This is the sort of thing air traffic might offer you, or they might do with you, because it's not uncommon if you just cut in a bit high and fast to tell air traffic control we need more track miles. That's what pilots would say. That's miles to touchdown. And in that case, then they would end up giving you something like this, just vectoring you around. Now, they wouldn't appreciate it, especially in Los Angeles or a very busy airspace like this. They would be quite upset that you've got in their way, but it's better to do that than to go around because that will upset them even more. So we were clearly too high. And that shows you that you can't just rely on the VNAV profile. Although the airplane was correct, it was just way, way off the profile. It was not even, just not achievable from what I gave it. So there we go. It's just interesting to me. It didn't say anything, but that could be to do with the modes I had selected. Now, it's interesting as well, we're at idle, and it's Oh, it's trying to come back. There you go. It's coming back to the next stage of the speed. So I want to keep the descent going. I know we're safe at the train, so I'm actually going to put that back to 250 and then put it again. And there we go. Now we'll get that nose down. And if I go direct... Oh, it's sequenced past it. So let's bring it around towards Mercy. And we'll be in a better position than we were certainly a few minutes ago. And there we go, I can scroll back up one just like you can on the Airbus. I keep saying it's like the Airbus, but it's because bizarrely it is. Now I'm not going to do the direct until we're pointing towards it, because it clearly doesn't like that. So we've got to be above 4,000 feet at Mercy. We're only 5 miles away and we're at 6,000. So there's a glide slope coming in now. So this is why I put those speed brakes away. An orbit like this is a very powerful tool. Let's try and engage a vertical speed. How does that work? So I've set 900. It still says vertical speed 22. Yes, I don't know why it has this magenta 2200, because it is actually doing what I'm asking it. So I'm saying 700. As soon as I open that window, it's doing 700 feet per minute. So we're doing 250 knots, 700 feet per minute. Let's start winding the speed back. So I'll go back to FMS speed, which will slow it down to 220 for the profile. And there's that message I was saying, add drag. It doesn't think we can make it. Now I'm going to do direct to Mercy and engage nav. Although it's actually going to Kobe, it looks like, so that hasn't worked either. So we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. Let's pull the heading bug. It's runway 2, it's roughly 250 degrees. So if we intercept about 280, and then I can simply arm the approach land mode. And now it goes land armed. So now it should find that localizer. We are 20 miles out, so we're okay to be clean for now. You can imagine, if we increase the range, you'll see that actually this is an extended centerline. There we go, localizer has engaged, so there's the runway, so we're in line with it now. And now, if we keep doing our 700 feet per minute at 220 knots, we'll eventually catch that glide slope. Let's do 600 feet per minute. And let's slow down a bit further. Let's get the first bit of flap out. The flap limiting speeds are all printed here nicely. 1 to 15, 255 knots. So let's get the slats out. There we go. That one. And there's the slat retract speed down there. And it's automatically coming back to 180 knots. Intercepting the glide slope fairly shortly. Let's jump to our porthole view. Oh, the blind's closed. It was too scary to look out the window at our approach, clearly. There we go. Big, big, big slats on this. Old school slats. Pretty cool. Scenery in 2024 looking very nice. Okay, 185 knots, and there you go. SR goes amber, so we can't retract the slats now. We need to have them out for the speed we're flying. Just sync the heading bug. And hopefully, oh no, it is now on the glide slope. Heading, let's just check. There we go. Right, lock, glide slope, land arm. That's better. We don't want to be in heading mode. Keep an eye on those modes. They're very, very easy to get wrong because they're just so different. You might have heard that warning there, stabilizer motion, as the aircraft retrims itself at different for the different flying speed, because it does do some rather large changes. And you'll see now, this stabilizer is going to have to go very, very extreme angle to get the airplane stable for landing. So let's go to flap 15, which is where our data flap setting was last. And you can see there that the speed target reduces again. I'm not sure what it's going to eventually aim for, but you can leave it in FMS speed and it will come back to the approach speed. I'm not sure why it shows a 172. Unless I look here, slat speed 162, minimum, flat 150. I don't know. I don't know. Can't tell you that. Very unique airplane in lots of ways, this. Coming out of the haze now. There's the runway. Looking good. 11 miles to go, so really air traffic would probably expect you to go no slower than this, so we can just sit here for a second. Probably something we should have done. Get those landing lights back on. Light ourselves up for everyone to see us. 8 miles out. A little bit early, but let's lower the landing gear. Yeah, 2,000 feet, not bad. Gear down. And then we're going to go to flaps 28. And then it's again is reduce the target speed. Love this system, just like the Airbus. And we'll go to our landing flap of 35. There we go. So we're gear down. There's that stabilizer traveling, and you'll see it. Oh, not that much. But you can see every pixel. Look at that detail. Excellent. See that stabilizer running, running, running as the airplane tries to stabilize itself. And there it is. Look at that. Look how nose up it's gone. And that's because it's just too small in some respects. It's great for the cruise, but not so good where we are here. The scenery is really amazing. There's our shadow as well. Love it. Awesome. Right, now this aircraft difficult to land in a crosswind, but luckily we have very benign weather today, no real wind at all. So we're back at approach speed. Again, those speed brakes are not armed. I have not figured out the arming issue, so I will have to keep working on that one. But there we go. I'm sure it's something to do with my control setup. So you flare at about 40 feet in this aircraft, so that's what we're going to do to make sure that we get something resembling a reasonable touchdown. Although the nose gear may get held up in the air, we shall see. So autopilot off, and it keeps running that alarm, so you press it twice, and we get autopilot off. And now I'm going to do very little, just try and keep it on that profile. It is a manually trimming airplane, so if you're out of trim at this point, then it's going to stay out of trim. But I don't want to do too much because it was in trim. Keeping it steady. And like I say, about 40 feet, and the auto throttle system will close those thrust levers for us. Bring it a little bit high, keep it steady.
50, 40,
Flare.
30, 20, 10.
Oof. There is a bump. There we go. So even at 40 feet, it really needed a bit more than that, didn't it? And now holding that nose off, just a nice gentle touchdown, and letting the medium water brake do the work. Well, it's not really doing a lot, is it? So I'm going to get manual brakes. I wonder if that's because the speed brakes didn't deploy. Anyway, there we go. Welcome back to the ground. And finally, the auto brake system seems to have kicked in. Welcome back to the ground. Yes, a unique airplane with lots of things to learn about it. that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it's been interesting for you just to see the TFDi Design MD-11 in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. I think it's fantastic. I really enjoyed it in 2020, and now they've upgraded the artwork. It's the full package, really. It looks great, it sounds great, and the systems are built into it. I think for $5 to get it in 2024, that's a reasonable asking price, especially when you consider the extra artwork, and considering that's free for people in 2020, I think it's a very good deal indeed. But this is a fantastic airliner, a very unique machine. It's so much easier to learn than you would imagine. If you're flying an Airbus around in Flight Simulator 2020 or 2024 with any confidence, then I think the MD-11 is something you would have no trouble with. So I could highly recommend it if you fancy going for something a little more retro and a little bigger and heavier than an A320. Then this would be a really nice airplane to take. Just a few odd switches and so on, but the quick start guide on TFDi Design's website is spot on. Anyway, there'll be plenty more videos, guides and live streams coming to the channel in the future, so do please subscribe if you'd like to see those. Otherwise, we'll see you again in another video soon. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.